So for this lecture, we're going to talk about, we're going to take a side, uh, we're going to step aside a little bit from statics and mechanics, and we're going to talk about some effective ways for you to do better in your courses during your college career, specifically focusing on using metacognition in order to do so. So, I want to first mention that this presentation is general. It's meant for any student who's starting off in college or even later on in college. But the major thing I want you to notice here is that this data was taken from Louisiana State University. We had students who came in struggling in their first year or early classes, and they struggled on their first few exams, but towards the end of the course, they were able to get much, much better exam grades. And the question I have for you is how did they do it? How did they get better during this course? All right. So the reason they got better is they became expert learners using metacognition in order to improve their performance. They studied not to learn, not just to get a grade on an exam. Okay. So, what I hope that you get out of this presentation is that you'll be able to analyze how you're currently studying for this course, all right? And then how you can understand what changes you need to improve your understanding of the material, which will naturally improve your grade. How will you be aware, you will have to be aware of specific strategies that you can apply that will improve your learning and will you can and you will implement them in this class and other classes going forward to improve your performance. And then the last thing is I want you to become a more efficient, effective learner by applying the presented strategies. All right. So, what so a question two questions for you are what is the difference, if there is any, between studying and learning? And the second question is for which task would you work harder? Would you work harder to make an A on an exam or a quiz? Or would you work harder to teach the same material that quiz or exam covered to the class in like a review session setting? Which would you have to work harder? So I'm going to stop. I recommend that you stop the video now, contemplate these questions, and then repause and hit play. Okay, so in the most part, what I've gotten from students who I've given this lecture before in person is that they could perceive studying as being something where you're reviewing material that you already know. It's usually quick, last minute sort of thing where you're reviewing. You're just trying to remember all the things that you already had. Typically, students do not enjoy studying. They typically, however, their attitude towards learning, which they usually say is gradual, it's usually something that they have interest in doing, and they say they enjoy doing it, and they say usually it's done over a longer period of time. Okay, so and then the second question, most students and people in general would rather try to get an A in an exam than to teach the material to a class. Usually, the idea of teaching a material is much more intimidating. You have to stand in front of the class, and you have to be willing to answer any question that someone is willing to put out there. So it's a very difficult thing to do, and typically people perceive it as requiring much more work to be able to do that effectively than it would be to get an A on an exam. Okay, so my challenge to you is that in your courses to try to stay try to learn, not study. If you can study as if you have to um, teach the material to someone else, not just make an exam on the course. So try to learn, try to enjoy what you're doing during college, try to learn this material gradually, and then imagine that you had to teach this material to someone else. Would you feel confident doing that? If you're able to do that, you'll do very well on the exams. All right. So this is specific to Miami University's curriculum, but this is pretty typical of most engineering curriculums, especially in like mechanical engineering or civil engineering, is that statics, which is the course that you're currently in, is typically a pretty essential or foundation course for the rest of your engineering courses. So in Miami's curriculum, it is a direct pre or co-requisite with 7 other courses. So that is a it's used all the time. All the dot products, cross products, vectors, moments, balancing forces. That's going to be used a lot. So it's best for you to learn this material now instead of studying it because you will use it going forward. All right, and then those courses that build off of 211 are further built upon. So indirectly, there's 12 courses, which is almost 1.5 years of your life. Depends on some of the knowledge that you're going to use in this course. So all the time you invested in learning this material, it will pay off during future semesters.